Gather around, boys and girls, because it's time for the story of my cheating ex-wife and how I've dear. Now, bear with me as this is a bit of a long one, but so I had a feeling she was cheating as she set off a lot of red flags, constantly laughing and smiling when texting, saying it was just her mother. When I asked, needing to stay late every night after work when I'd call in, her coworker said she left hours ago. When I asked her what was going on, she'd laugh it off and say it was just something they did to each other at the office all the time. The last straw to where I knew something was definitely up was when she went out to get milk at 11:30 at night and didn't come back till 2 in the morning. Now, if there is any words of wisdom I can pass on to others in all my years of experience, it's if you think your significant other is cheating, hire a private investigator. They're goddamn good at what they do and they will get some good evidence that really helps in the later divorce. Fast track to her birthday several months down the road. Now I know what you're thinking. Why the hell did I wait months before I confronted her? And did it really need to be on her birthday? The answer to the first question is I wanted as much evidence as possible to hand off to my lawyer, as well as make arrangements to find a new place to live, etc. Answer to your second question is, of course, it had to be on her birthday. You see, after asking her what she wanted to do on her birthday this year, she was rather insistent on me going out of town with my friends and she just wanted to work anyways and didn't want to be reminded she was aging. So I know something is up, and after finding a bottle of champagne and 2 glasses hidden in my closet, something in me snaps. So I did what any sensible man would have done. I leave and go to my friend's house pretending like I'm going out of town. While there, I call up her mother, father, sister, and several of her friends. I tell them how I want to give her a big surprise by sneaking into a room with party streamers, kazoos, and a big cake with candles. Sounds fun, right, boy? Was it is 8:30 in the morning and I have everyone met just outside of our apartment. We all pile in the elevator. There are 8 of us in total. Her mother holding the cake. Emir, reminding everyone to be as quiet as they can be. I put my key in and unlock the door. We all sneak in and make our way down the hall towards the bedroom. Each hold the kazoo and mom is holding the cake, grinning from ear to ear. Well, as I throw open the door and we all yell, surprise. But the surprise was on us. And there was my wife bent over and doggy-style position with her lover, staring at us, wide-eyed, mid-thrust. Mom drops the cake, sister screams. Father begins to shout. I pretend like I'm horrified to watch her friends try to push everyone out while yelling at her. Wife, excuse me. Ex-wife is sobbing and screaming. How could I? While the lover is desperately trying to put his pants on while running out of the place, needless to say, it was one of the best birthday presents I have ever given. Update. Well, to be honest, it was funny as hell at first. I tried to disguise my laughing by pretending I was choking up after so long of being betrayed. I was the one who got to have the last laugh. Plus, since I had hired the private investigator, I was able to prove she was using my money to pay for things for her lover, hotels, dinners, etc. So I did get some compensation for that, though she did get half of my life savings. But I was young and just starting out, so the amount I had then is pretty laughable now. So then reality sets in. Your marriage is over. The woman you fell in love with has betrayed you, in the last 2 years of your life were a bit of a waste. In the end, it's not even about the money. I really thought, I love this girl. Why didn't she love me for the longest time? I wondered what was wrong with me and if anyone would truly be able to love me. Not to mention, I was really close to her dad. Mine left when I was younger, and I never spoke to him since then, so he just kind of took me under his wing. Kind of. The father I never had. I still call him from time to time, share with him my accomplishments as they come, and even stop by to see him when I get a chance. Divorce is never fun, boys and girls. And take my advice. When you're young and in love, don't be foolish and run into something. Take some time to really get to know the other person. Wait 3 to 5 years. Move in together. I wish someone had just pulled me aside and said, man, think about what you're doing. Maybe you should give it some time. Also, another piece of advice. The old saying about how a girl really is by how she treats her parents. This is absolutely true. She was a total to her parents. That should have been my first red flag. While I personally think the nature of this revenge was very extreme. Hopefully the girl will be mortified of cheating in her future so people like her, OP, don't end up in these situations. That sucks that he had to pay up half of his life, saving it to compensate the divorce. It was probably the fact that he knew for months and planning this revenge that he didn't avoid that. But from what I've heard from people getting a divorce about the price, say it's worth it. Our next story has the title, Cheat on Me with My Best Friend. I'll wreck your career and publicly humiliate you. My best friend and Sarah have been like family to my wife and I for several years, practically ever since we moved in across the street from them. The four of us were extremely tight. Our kids are the same age as theirs and are all good friends. We were one big family unit. We did dinner together a few times a week. We went on vacations together. I truly saw my best friend as a brother, and my wife and Sarah were very close to 5 months ago. I was completely blindsided by the discovery of an affair between my wife and best friend. My wife had left her email open on our computer and I saw an email from her to her longtime therapist saying that my best friend would be joining her at an upcoming session again. What the fuck? My mind started racing. Why in the world would my best friend be going to her therapy session without my knowledge? I did a search and found some other emails to and from the therapist proving that best friend had been going to sessions together with her for about 6 weeks. I checked our mobile phone account and discovered that since late summer they had been exchanging hundreds of texts every day, peaking at nearly 500 a day by the holidays. Speaking of the holidays, my wife and I hosted both of our families, parents, siblings, etc., for both Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner. Our best friend and Sarah joined us either for dinner or after dinner on both holidays. Text records show that the entire time that they were at our house celebrating with our families, my wife and best friend were texting each other across the room. They were doing that pretty much every time the four of us hung out for months and, all day, every day just in general. But what bothers me the most is that they were doing it with Sarah and I right there. I confronted my wife with the evidence and she admitted that, yes, she and my best friend had fallen in love. It just happened. I don't know how, but I love him. And I just don't feel anything for you anymore. I'm sorry. They had gone on a school district trip together. Something had happened in her hotel room, and things had moved quickly from there. She explained as I lay face down on the couch, unable to look at her, that they had already made plans to move out and divorce me and Sarah. And while they didn't plan to move in together immediately because of the kids, they'd probably do so eventually. The meetings with the therapist were supposedly mostly for the purpose of finding a way to break this to me and Sarah as gently as possible because they were so very concerned for our well-being. Sarah and I are fairly certain that they weren't planning on telling us about the affair at all and were simply going to discover their feelings for one another several months down the line after they'd come up with some other reason to divorce. The two of us. My wife moved out 2 months ago. I was and still am utterly distraught. I cry every single day. I cried right in the first few paragraphs of the story just now. I worry nonstop about the impact on our kids, but I'm also not exactly a shrinking violet when I feel that I've been wronged. And in this case, I was objectively very, very wronged. So a couple of years ago, my best friend ran for a board of education seat as a pretty extreme underdog. I helped him with his campaign materials and debate prep, and my wife, a well-known school district employee, this becomes important later, got the word out as best she could. Much to her surprise, he actually won in a squeaker by just a few dozen votes. Being on the board became the center of my best friend's world. He joined every committee that he could. This turned into the foundation of his affair with my wife as they were constantly going to school events and meetings together on evenings and weekends. Once I discovered the affair, my thoughts turned pretty quickly to revenge. And it occurred to me that an extramarital affair between a member of the Board of Education and an employee of the school district was at least bad politics and possibly violated district policy. Making things far worse for them was that my wife was in the running for an open administrative position, and everyone knew that she was more or less guaranteed the job and a major pay raise that came with it. She had just finished her master's degree in school administration at the urging of her principal and the superintendent so that she could be promoted to the specific position. I had plenty of evidence of the affair, texts for both of them admitting to it, tax records showing that they were texting hundreds of times a day, emails to and from the therapist, etc. I considered simply emailing all of the evidence to the board and the superintendent, but felt like I, as the grieving betrayed spouse, might not be seen as the credible source. So instead invented a fictitious furious friend who was planning on showing up to the next board meeting and publicly shaming the two of them for their affair. I told my wife that I tried to talk this person down, but couldn't guarantee they wouldn't show up and humiliate them publicly, as I expected. This led best friend to conclude that the only option was for him to preemptively admit the affair to the board. The superintendent subsequently recommended that the best friend resign, which he did. Sarah said that he was utterly humiliated and crushed and barely got out of bed for a few days afterward. Once word of the affair and best friend's resignation started getting around, the superintendent, a longtime friend of both my wife and best friend, contacted my wife and tearfully informed her that it was no longer politically appropriate for her to be promoted to an administrator position within the district. The position that had been lined up for her was later filled by an outside candidate. This sent waves of confusion and rumor throughout the district, as it was pretty well known that my wife was getting the job. The day after she was informed that she wasn't getting the promotion, my wife and I, despite our crumbling marriage, took our son out to breakfast together on his birthday, and a parent stopped by our table to congratulate her on her new role. She said, "Thanks. Then excuse yourself to go cry in the bathroom for a while." I let the dust settle for a couple of weeks, and then right before my wife moved out, let them in on my little secret. There was never a furious friend threatening to expose them in the first place, just me. Word of all this has gotten around our fairly small town, which best friend grew up in and my wife worked in for nearly 20 years. My wife refuses to talk to me about how things are at work now, but I've heard from some people I know in the district that our formerly spotless reputation has taken a major shit. Best friend, formerly a gregarious social presence in our neighborhood and at events in pubs in town, has completely gone underground and barely emerges to mow the lawn. He's moving out soon to a little townhouse, which is all he can afford due to all the child support he's going to have to pay his wife. My wife and best friend claim that they plan on trying to make things work together despite all the public humiliation. I wish them lots of luck with that. I'm sure it will be a lot of fun to show their faces together in town. Hope this was amazing. You managed to get what might be the sweetest type of revenge with such a simple fake alibi. Minimum effort, maximum destruction. You made them believe it was all their idea to preemptively expose themselves. Brilliant,